Hey girls, it's Kristen and Bethany here with Girl Defined Ministries, and in today's vlog, we're going to be talking about what cow tipping taught us about living beyond the moment. So you may be wondering what in the world cow tipping has to do with today's vlog post. Well, let me share a story and then you might understand. So several years ago, actually back in high school, Kristen and I decided to do something absolutely crazy. We had always heard of the term cow tipping, and we honestly thought it was a real thing. If you think cow tipping is real, well, listen to this story. So we were with some friends in a really small Texas country town, and it was late at night, and we decided to go out and hang out with these friends, and we decided that we wanted to try out cow tipping, but we didn't want anyone to know. We didn't tell our parents' friends. We didn't tell our parents. We didn't want anyone to know. So we actually turned off our cell phones when we got to our location.
Smart.
We really not smart plan, because it was back in the day, so you can't like track people or figure out where people were. So our poor parents thought we were getting like killed or something. Just these girls running around town. So we actually snuck on to people's property that we didn't know, spotted a batch of cows, and actually tried to sneak up and tip them over. And as we were sneaking up, all the cows alerted one another, like, moo, here comes people. And they were all standing there and just started walking away. And we're like, this is a horrible plan. It didn't work.
They were standing.
And if one was sitting, it was like, moo, and got up and left. So then we were like, oh man, this plan didn't work. So then we drove to another location, not realizing that everyone in Texas has a gun, could have easily shot us for trespassing, or the police could have arrested us for trespassing on someone's property. Not a smart plan, but we thought, this is fun, living in the moment, doing something kind of crazy, not thinking long-term about the consequences that could happen. So we actually snuck onto another person's property, same situation, cows alerted each other, ran off, and here we are, like, great plan, didn't work. And we realized that cow tipping actually isn't a real thing. So we arrived back home, and our poor parents and our friends' parents were wondering where in the world we were. They were wondering if we got kidnapped or what had happened to us. And we had to confess the story that we had trespassed onto people's properties and tried to cow tip. And they very kindly explained to us how stupid our decision was, and explained to us what the consequences of what could have happened.
Yeah.
And we were young. They helped us learn some very important life lessons through some special restrictions for the future. But it was a really good lesson for the two of us, realizing that living in the moment isn't always a good thing.
I think as young women, like what happened to us, I think oftentimes we live in the moment and we don't really think about the big picture. We don't really think about what's going to happen long term, or how the decisions that we're making today are going to affect tomorrow and the next day and the next week. That's totally happened to us. And in fact, we learned several years later an amazing illustration that helped us as Christian girls realize that, you know what? It is really important to think in terms of the big picture. It is not smart, it is not wise to live in the moment and to not think of the big picture. And we're not just talking about high school or college or just when you're young. We're talking about, we learned the big picture when it comes to life. And we saw an amazing illustration once. It was actually by Francis Chan, which some of you may have seen this, or you may know of him. He's an amazing pastor.
He's
but
awesome.
He gave this illustration, and it just totally hit home for us to help us as Christian girls realize that we need to be thinking in terms of the big picture of our entire lives, and realize that every decision we're making now, tomorrow, will affect the big picture. So here I have a rope, and hopefully you can see it. And let's just imagine that this rope just goes on and on and on forever. It just keeps stretching. It goes around the world. It goes on and on forever. But here on the very tip of this super long rope, hope you can see it, is a tiny little red strip. Now this tiny little red strip actually represents our existence. And the rest of the rope that goes on forever and ever, represents all of eternity. But as Christian girls, we often forget about all of eternity forever and ever, and we get caught up in the here and now. We get caught up in this tiny little red part. It is so small in comparison to the entire rope, but we get caught up in this tiny red part, which represents our lives, and we make all of our decisions based on what's happening in the tiny red part, and we forget that in fact this tiny red part is so small, but we're really supposed to be living for the eternity. So we make decisions based on what feels good now, what's going to help us, what's going to make us happy now, what's going to satisfy us now, without thinking of the big picture, without thinking of eternity. So we want to encourage you girls, as you see this illustration, it has so encouraged us to remember that the big picture matters. What kind of regrets, are you going to have? Like right now you might be at this part of your life, like kind of young, maybe teens, 20s, we're in our late 20s. We're like right here, maybe you get older, 50s, 60s, if God gives you a long life, maybe 80, 90, and then you get to the end of your life and it's over and you enter into eternity. And when you get to eternity, are you going to look back on your life and have regrets and say, man, I wish I didn't do that, or I wish I didn't do that, or man, it was totally worth it to watch 7,000 movies or to go to all those parties that totally encouraged me to compromise? When you get to the end, are you going to look back and have those kind of regrets? Or are you going to make wise choices now when you're young to say, you know what? It's hard to honor God as a Christian girl. It's hard to do the right thing, but I am going to, because I'm not here for the red part. I am living with the big picture in mind. I'm living for eternity. And if you can grasp this and really sear this illustration into your mind and allow this to filter all of the decisions you make, this perspective, it will be transformational. It has for us, and we can't encourage you enough to live with the big picture in mind in everything you do.
And now you may be wondering, how do I do that? How do I practically live for eternity as a young woman right now? Well, if you go to our blog, girldefined.com, we offer tons of free resources on there where you can learn how to live for eternity. And if you really want to dig deeper, you want to go more in depth into this topic, I do recommend our book, Girl Defined. And specifically, chapter 12, we dig really deep into how to live with eternity in mind.
So that wraps up our vlog for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video and found it helpful, we'd love it if you give us a thumbs up. And we actually post new videos every Wednesday. So if you subscribe to our channel, you can see more videos from us every Wednesday.
Feeling relaxed.
And today's vlog,
Whichever.
come on, George.
Okay, ready?
I can't pull it together.
Feeling overwhelmed. Okay, ready? So,
I know, it's not the point.
Whew, boiling. It would